Okay, thank you everyone for being here today. Thank you for inviting me to present at the Grapho seminars. The presentation will be in English, but afterwards, if you have questions or comments in Catalan or Spanish, they are welcome as well. So, well, Miranda already presented me. I'm Núria Targarona Rifa, a PhD student here at the Anthropology Department, and I'm in my second year. And well, I'm part of the Grapho and I'm also part of the CoalesceLab. And today I'm going to be presenting categorization and boundary work, exploring the potential of visual tools in mixed method social network analysis. This is based on a paper that I'm preparing with two of my supervisors, Louise Ryan, who works at the Metropolitan University in London, and Alejandro Fiordia, who I'm sure that you know and who's present here today. And well, it's a methodological paper, which is going to be part of my thesis. It's going to be the first paper of my thesis. And I just wanted to mention that you'll see that today I talk a lot about social boundaries, but my PhD thesis focused specifically on ethnic boundaries. So, well, social boundaries are those distinctions that people make between groups of individuals and are continuously constructed and negotiated within social networks. However, we see that these processes are seldomly explored in detail in network analysis. And categorization and boundary work are concepts that are very abstract and they might be difficult to, discuss directly with participants. So with this paper, we are trying to solve this problem and try to find methods to study these processes within the networks of participants. So how can we how can we convey the meaning of these abstract questions to participants? So on the one hand, we ask them to report on specific ties, on specific people who are part of their networks. And on the other hand, we use simple visualizations that will help us to support this task that is cognitively demanding. So as you will see, I'm going to be presenting two interactive visual tools that we have developed with the aim to inductively collect data on categorization and boundary drawing within social networks. And I'm going to be talking about the methodological benefits of these instruments that we have developed in a mixed method study at different stages of social network analysis, that data collection and interpretation and analysis of the data. But first, I'm going to talk a little bit about some theory on social boundaries and categorization. So social boundaries, as I mentioned before, separate people into us and them. They separate people into groups, defining who belongs, who doesn't belong, who's an insider and who's an outsider. Boundaries also display two dimensions. The first one is a categorical dimension that refers to the acts of social classification, again, dictating who is part of us, who is part of them. And then the social or behavioral dimension is that one that is the relational dimension that tells us how we are supposed to interact with people who are part of the us and who are part of the them. Also, because of my interest in ethnic boundaries, I'm looking at authors such as Park, for example, to try to understand how people navigate their relationships within and beyond ethnic boundaries, but also other types of social boundaries. And at the same time, how these everyday relationships also shape and contest these boundaries. And other authors such as Monk talk about state categories, which I found interesting as well. So Monk defines state categories as social identities that are imposed on individuals. So either we like them or not, they are imposed to us. And then he makes a criticism to the state categories because he argues that they are nominalistic, that they are superordinate and reductionist, and they are thought to refer to internally homogeneous groups, ignoring that social groups might have diversity within them, might be heterogeneous. Finally, I also wanted to talk about a a differentiation that Scusarello and Morassano do between boundary drawing from above and from below. So on the one hand, we have institutional actors such as politicians, mass media, and so on, that draw boundaries from above. They draw boundaries between different communities. But then at the same time, we have individuals in society that negotiate these boundaries informally from below. So there's these categories that are imposed from above on individuals, but individuals can also find some strategies to challenge these categories, to maintain them, to reinforce them, and to try to create new categories and new social boundaries. I've talked about this a little bit, but to try to clarify what is the link between boundaries and relational work. Why is boundary drawing of interest in social network analysis? So yes, on the one hand, we see that relational work, which is the establishment, maintenance, reshaping, and sometimes termination of interpersonal relations, creates and shifts social boundaries, relations within and across the boundaries, and also meaningful categories that distinguish people on the both sides of the boundaries. But then in turn, social boundaries may also affect the structure of social networks. So then we can conclude that social networks and social boundaries influence each other. So if we take into consideration this framework, we see that there's a need to have new methodological approaches to study individuals' cognitive perceptions in their acts of boundary drawing and the processes of categorization from below, informed by social network analysis. And we argue that such an approach should be open and inductive. So in this case, our method combines the use of interactive visual tools, which I'm going to present in a minute, and then the unspecific stimulus of vague concepts that are social status and similarity. So with this combination, we aim directly at the individual system of relevance, and this allows to identify this process of boundary work that emerge from below within the networks of the participants. I also wanted to quickly talk about the role of visualization in social network analysis. We see that visualization has been part of the field since its beginning, since the use of the social diagram in 1934 by Moreno. And it's been used to study both whole and personal networks. Often, visualizations in social network analysis are used in the lab, in the analysis stage, but they are also being used to collect data for example, mixed methods and studies or qualitative studies. A well-known tool is the circle diagram of Kahn and Antonucci, but there's many others like free drawing, like network maps, and so on. I also wanted to mention that visual tools, when they are employed to collect data, they normally elicit a list of alters and collect data on alter types. But our tools that I'm going to present, they are not intended to do that, but intended to arrange alters. And then, well, in the literature, in traditionally low-tech tools such as like pen and paper has been used, but nowadays more and more there's specialized software that is becoming more popular. So today I'm going to be trying to address two research questions. The first one has to do with the collection of data, and it's, do the interactive visual tools that we have devised facilitate eliciting richer data on boundary making processes in comparison with standard qualitative strategies? And more specifically, do they enhance the palpability of responses and provide opportunities for following up on emerging themes? And the second one is related to the analysis phase. How do the visual tools aid the understanding of boundary making within personal networks in the analysis phase? So, time to present the two visual tools. I just wanted to clarify that the aim of these tools is not only to collect visual data, but to provide some cognitive support for the participants and to also stimulate narration and reflection. So to collect at the end visual data, but also narrative oral data. The tools are designed to be used within qualitative interviews. And as I mentioned, they are not designed to elicit a list of authors, but to arrange the authors. So for that reason, we need already a list of authors, right? We need to pre-select some authors. We believe that it's better to choose between 6 and 10 authors to use with the tools, because if we choose less than that, then we cannot guarantee a lot of diversity. And if we choose many authors, then it might become a task that is too cognitively demanding. But anyways, to select the authors, as I said, we need to elicit a list of authors first. So for example, with name generator questions. And then we have identified 2 different strategies. One strategy would be that the researcher chooses some authors from this list according to the objectives of their research. And then another strategy would be to let the participants choose the authors. But again, I would recommend that with having in mind, of course, also the objective of the research. So, for example, instructing the participant, and I'm thinking about an example. If we want to study social support within the network, so we could present the participant with a list of people of people in their networks and ask them, could you choose 8 people who have provided you with support in the last 6 months, for example, and then they would be choosing. But anyways, it's important to reflect on which strategy we use, because it may affect the data that we collect at the end. So the tools are based on simple diagrams. They are ego-centered, and they are structured because they have some elements that structure the data collection process, but they are these elements that they are not as defined as in tools that are standardized. And we use them displayed on electronic devices because we use PowerPoint. So this allows us to record both voice and the screen, so all the movements of the authors. So this is the first tool. It's a similarity scale. It's a one-dimensional tool that represents similarity between the participant and the authors, the 8 selected authors. So, yes. So you see that here we have the 8 selected authors. When we present this to the participant, of course, we would not have author 1, author 2, but the names of these people. And then we told the participant to arrange the authors according to how similar or different they think they are from themselves. So taking into account that this little figure here represents themselves, and then to explain the reasons why they think these people are different or similar to themselves. And this would allow us to see which type of social boundaries are more salient for each participant. The second tool is a social status diagram. It represents the status hierarchy within the participant's personal network. And if you can see that there's 8 authors and there's 12 steps. So we recommend that there's more steps than authors. And in this case, the instructions would be first, we would ask the participants to place the authors according to what they think their social status is, the status of these 8 people. Then, and of course, narrating the reasons why. And then we would create a new bubble that represents the participant, represents ego, and we would ask them to place themselves in the diagram and rearrange the authors if it's necessary. And thirdly, we would ask the participant whether, if they thought about the whole society in general, if the society would have placed these people in the same positions as they did it, and if not, then to rearrange and explain why society would have placed these people differently. So in this way, we can compare the view of the participant on social status, but also what they perceive that society would think about the social status of these eight people, well, 9 counting them as well. So for the data and methods, The data has been collected as part of the pretest of the patchwork project. It's an ERC advanced grant, as Miranda mentioned before. And yes, this was a mixed method pretest. It was collected between May and August 2023 in Barcelona urban area or Barcelonès. And the sample is a non-probability quota sample of 50 individuals that didn't aim for representativity, but heterogeneity. And with each participant, we conducted 2 interviews. The first one was a questionnaire to collect quantitative data on the participants' individual characteristics and on the network of this person. So this is how we collected the list of alters that I was mentioning, and not only the names, but some characteristics of these people that are part of the network of the participant. And then in the second encounter, we did a retest for the questionnaire, and then we conducted a qualitative interview where the visual tools were embedded. Yes, I thought that it would be interesting to mention that the exercises that use the tools lasted on average 24 minutes, but there's a big difference between the minimum 11 minutes and the maximum, which is 45 minutes. So you can see some participants did it pretty fast and others took their time to arrange all the alters. And after the data collection, the visual and oral data are integrated as well. I wanted to stop for a second in the quota sample. So because of the interest in studying ethnic boundaries, we have divided the sample into what we called locals and what we called migrants. So the locals here would be people who have been born in Spain and also people who arrived in Spain as children up to the age of 12 years old. And this group had a lot of variety, from members of the majority society born in Spain and with older generations born in Spain, people who arrived as children, people who are born in Spain but children of migrants, descendants of mixed couples, people of ethnic minorities, and so on. And then the group of migrants are people who arrived when they were a bit older, above 12 years old. We divided those into men and women, and then into low educational level and high educational level. And even within these groups, we try to have some variety in terms of age, socioeconomical status, religion, and city or neighborhood of residence. Among the 50 people who completed the first interview, 48 completed also the second interview. And also wanted to stop for 1 second in the alter selection process that we used. So to select the 8 alters for each participant, we took the we based that decision on the quantitative data from the first interview, and we took into account 2 variables. The first one was always ethnic background or origin, and the second one depended on each participant, depending on their characteristics of every participant. But to give you some examples, we used age, occupational status, religion, political ideology, among others. And I wanted to mention that we believe that this strategy guarantees that there's a selection of, first of all, weak ties and not only close ties, because, for example, if we let the participant choose, we can expect that they will choose only close ties, the people who are most important to them. Also negative ties, so ties with people that we have like a difficult relationship with. Again, if we let the participants choose, it's likely that they don't choose negative ties. And finally, diverse ties. So, for example, in terms of ethnicity, or if we are interested in religion, in terms of religion, for example, because again, due to homophily, we could expect that people would be choosing ties in their network that are similar to themselves. And for us, it was very important to have this diversity because it's the only way to observe whether the ethnic boundaries will emerge. If, for example, we have no one who has a different ethnic background selected, then it's impossible to observe these boundaries, right? We have to kind of like create the opportunity for them to emerge if that's the case, that they are important for the participants. So for the results, I just wanted to mention a little bit the most salient topics or factors that participants mention or that emerge during the interviews. So in first of all, for the similarity scale, they mentioned many factors, but I just here I collected only the ones who were mentioned by at least like half of the participants. And you can see that they are like age, personality traits, religion and religiosity, origin, like country of origin, migration, status, roots, ethnicity, then taste, interest, and hobbies, professional aspects such as the type of job, the sector where they work, educational aspects such as the level of education, whether someone is a student or not, the type of educational background they have, and even like relational aspects such as the type of relationship they have, the type of how these authors relate to other people, whether they have contacts in common. And as I said, there's many other, but if you want, we can discuss that later, but for now. And then in terms of the social status diagram, almost all participants mentioned, but one mentioned the financial situation of the person and wealth, like for example, both of the individual and their families, and employment as well, like the type of job they had, whether it's a prestigious job, whether they like the salary they earn, and so on. But here I thought it's also interesting to see that there was other issues that maybe they were not cited by most participants, but that I thought that they were interesting. For the social status, people also mentioned other things like the housing situation of that person, relational aspects such as with whom is connected with whom that person is connected, like do they have contacts with the elite, do they have contacts with powerful people, and also some people talk about the immigration and status and ethnicity, like making mentions like do they have a residence permit or not, and in terms of ethnicity, they were born in Spain, for example, but due to like their skin color, they would have like a lower social status and so on. So these issues also emerge. Now, if we kind of like go back to the research question, so how do these visual tools allow participants to express their ideas better, and how, or what data we have been able to collect that without the tools we hadn't been able to collect? So we see that the tools act as narration stimuli, eliciting reflections from participants. And here there's a couple of quotes from participants that because I wanted to show you how, by visualizing this, by using the visual tools, the participants actually made some comments that otherwise probably they would not have made. So, for example, if these both examples are from the similarity exercise, and in the first one, the participant was placing the alters, and at the end, she realized that she had placed all the men as different and all the women as different. And she looked at it and said, like, oh, look, all the men and all the women. So it means that probably unconsciously she was doing that, and only by visually seeing that, she realized. And then the second one was a Roma activist. She kind of did something similar, but with ethnicity there. And she placed all the Roma altars on the similar side and the non-Roma altars on the different side. And she said, due to closeness, I stick to the three Roma. Look, here I wanted to mention that by the narrative, she didn't mean closeness in a sense of like emotional closeness, but in like physical closeness, because if you remember, there's the little figure that represents ego, represents the participant, and all the three Roma people were close to her, right? And then, well, we have also seen that the tools allow participants to respond in more flexible ways. So, for example, it was easy for them to locate and relocate altars all the time. So they would be placing one altar, and then they would be going to place the second altar, and then they would remember something about the first one, go back to the first, and move the altars continuously. And because we were using a computer, we could record everything. If we had used like pen and paper, for example, we would only have the final result. So all that type of data would have been lost. It also enabled giving emphasis to certain moves and positions. So this is interesting because some participants use the tools in a way that researchers we didn't expect them to use, like unanticipated ways, let's say. So for example, they would use the space in a way that was like dragging an altar outside of the diagram and then sometimes leaving it there or moving it back to give some emphasis to what they were saying. Or in the similarity or in the social status staircase, some participants placed altars in between two steps because they were very meticulous and they were saying like, no, because it's not going to this step, or the second one it's going in between because it needs to be here. So it gave flexibility to participants, and I'm going to show you an example of that. And finally, it also provided opportunities to discuss change and dynamic processes. With this, what I wanted to say is that although we didn't ask participants to reflect on change or dynamism, because we didn't ask them, for example, so your father, can you tell me how his social status has changed over time? No, we didn't make this question, but this doesn't mean that if a participant wanted to, put emphasis on that or share something related to change or dynamism, they had the opportunity to do it. And I'm going to show you as well an example. So this is a clip. This is anonymized. You see that there's no names, and the interesting altar is the green one, of course, that has a different color, and it's the bubble that represents the uncle of the participant. And I'm going to read to you what she said exactly. So she says, my fascist uncle, no, he's very different. In addition, he's older. No, I would place him there. And you see that she drags the person outside the diagram farther from very different, because he could not be more different than her. And she adds, besides, he's super homophobic. But then you will see that she placed at the end the altar at the limit of the diagram. So what I was mentioning before, right? They wanted to give some like extra emphasis to that move, but then at the end she decides to still place it within the limit. So yeah, that tells us a lot about what type of social boundaries are important to that person, right? And then the second example is about change in the social status of three family members. This is a real example, so it's not anonymized because the person anonymized the alters herself. Let's say she didn't give us the real names, but for those who don't know Spanish, the three bubbles here. This is brother, mother, and father. So three family members, and she was trying to locate them according to the social status. And well, you'll see that she lowers them, and then she says, 10 years ago, I would have placed them higher, but now intermediate, because, well, 10 years ago, they would be higher, and with the cursive she marks where. 2 years ago, they would have been lower, and again, she marks it with the cursor. You're going to be able to see that. And then that gave the interviewer, the possibility to follow up on that and ask, oh, I'm interested in what happened there. Can you tell me, why this changed? And then the person would go on and explain, well, some time ago, the financial situation happened, and so on, right? So Okay, and then in the analysis stage, how can we also use the potential of these visual tools? So on the one hand, we can draw both interpersonal comparisons between different participants, and we can also draw intrapersonal comparisons of authors. So comparing the position of ego and of the different authors, and also of the authors among themselves. It also allows for identification of emerging patterns and typologies of the data. So when we have visual data, it can be easier to find these patterns that emerge in the data. For example, in the social status exercise, because we didn't give a reference of the social status in the sense that we didn't tell the participant think about the status of the whole society, or think about the status of the people you know. We didn't tell them that. So when looking at the data, it's pretty clear that there's kind of like three different approaches. A group of participants took the approach to take the whole society as a reference, like the society of all, the status of all the members of society. Then another group took as a reference the status of the people they know, the people that are part of their personal networks. And then still a third group that was a group of participants that only took into account the social status of these 8 people. So they took as a reference at least one person that would have the lowest social status and one person that had the highest one. And here I'm giving you some examples. You'll see that they have one has a different color. This is the participant, right? This one and this one, and the other 8 are the authors. So you can see that in this case, the participant took only the 8 selected authors as reference, and here these are 2 cases that took as reference the whole society. In the one on the right, so the person considered that actually this person said, well, I don't know anyone who is there at the top. I've never talked to them, so I'm going to place these people in the middle or the bottom of the staircase. And then the one in the middle had like an opposite approach. This person thought that no one among these eight people, and well, or 9 also with themselves, and was at the bottom of the staircase if they take into consideration the whole society. And then, for any research that collects data with participants, there's ethical issues that need to be taken into account. And also when visually ranking network, when asking participants to visually rank ties of their network, there might be some issues with some participants feeling uncomfortable. So in this case, when we always gave the choice to participants not to classify a specific author or not to complete the exercise. And we had a case of one person who didn't classify one author and another person who didn't complete the exercises because they felt they didn't want to do that. And now to conclude, for the advantages of the methods for both the data collection and the analysis stage. So for the data collection, we've seen that the tools are easy to understand and used by participants. So in general, participants didn't have problems with understanding and using the tools. And for example, if people had some issues with the technology, what we did was that they would point this person here, and then it was move this person here, and then it was the interviewer who dragged the authors. So that was how we solved it. Then we see that it enables for the exploration of abstract and cognitively demanding concepts. It enables to collect this type of data. It's also, so the strategy that we use to select the 8 authors, as I mentioned before, allows us to explore weak, negative, and diverse ties in comparison to other strategies. And the use of computers in this case was very useful to record all the processes of the alter, arrangement, and rearrangement. If we compare to, for example, pen and paper, we would only have like the final result, and we would have missed all the different, movements and all the dynamic process. And for the data analysis stage, we can see that our method is like a window to the cognitive processes of categorization and boundary work, because thanks to the visualizations, all these processes of categorization become more explicit. And then as well, it allows for comparisons and identification of patterns in the data. There's, of course, some limitations of the method. So we see that these concepts that are very abstract and vague, like similarity and social status, are also cognitively demanding and might be burdensome for some participants. Some participants, were asking, but what do you mean by social status or similarity in what sense? They wanted some reassurance. So in this case, what we were doing was like try to give them reassurance, but without leading them into thinking in specific directions, such as telling them, I'm interested in what you think social status is. Also, well, visually categorizing network ties, particularly weak ties, is difficult for some participants because they were saying like, I don't have a lot of information on this person, so I wouldn't know where to place them, or I don't think it's fair. So in this sense, it was a bit difficult sometimes. Also, there might be some accessibility problems for certain profiles of participants. So, for example, with people who are visually impaired or illiterate, we did have a case of one woman that could not read and write. And what we tried to do in this case was using a color code. And so instead of having the names, we had different colors for each alter. But it's true that this can still be very cognitively demanding, because it means that the person needs to remember the connection between 8 people and 8 colors. So there might be better ways to do that. And then after the data collection, the integration of the audio and visual data is very lengthy. So that's also burdensome. And well, we need to select a limited number of alters, because if we wanted to use like 30 alters, it would be way too demanding for the participants. So any process of selecting alters will have some drawbacks. And now I wanted to open like the discussion by asking you, if you think about what you are doing, what is your research, could you apply these methods, or if you could try to apply them, how would you like modify them to adapt them to your needs? For example, could we use this not only for personal networks, but for whole network analysis? Could we use them not only in mixed methods, but also in qualitative social network studies? Do you think that they would be useful to study other types of social boundaries, not only ethnicity or based on ethnicity, but also like, say, religion, ideology, and so on? And if we think about specific subgroups, how would you adapt the method as well? Like, for example, children, or again, people that do not know how to read or write. We were even thinking about like a way to do it, if you would get like permission from the alters, is to use pictures instead of names, so that the people who cannot read, who cannot read would still be able to complete the exercises. But there's, I guess, other ways to do it. And well, these are just the references if someone needs to check that. And that's it from me. Thank you.